Stop there briefly, and he drops back to pass. Flushed out of the pocket. Aiken finds his receiver. Milan Spiller along the side.
Quad set, 2 on each side. Drops back to pass, looks down the middle, has a guy, fires it complete.
Aiken, quick pass.
Aiken takes the snap. He's looking to his right, throws it down the field.
Hurry, and here is a home run ball reeled in, and this.
There are a ton of European American football receivers that have never hit 1,000 yards in the European League of Football. We've had Division 1 athletes that run NFL practice squads. We've had some of the best young generation of European receivers we've ever seen. The European receivers coming through at the moment are something we've never seen before in this continent. It's absolutely outstanding. All of them very close to, but not quite achieving that 1,000 yard marker. Even players from the quote-unquote old guard who would be on like the Mount Rushmore of European receivers never actually hit 1,000 yards in the ELF, which I think is incredibly interesting. 4 years in, no one has ever done it in Europe. And then comes Milan Spiller, and he might do it in his rookie season. This is a player that prior to this season was playing in the 3rd division of Swiss football. Now, a lot of people don't realize about Milan Spiller is he actually did play D3 football for 1 year. But then he came back and played in the 3rd tier of Swiss football. So how has a player playing Swiss football in the 3rd division become one of the best receivers in the best competition in Europe? We have to start with his route tree. Now I think every time I do one of these I get a little bit more this receiver's got one of the most varied route trees I've ever seen from a rookie or from a young player, because I've predominantly covered young players in this evaluation series so far in this channel. I'm not being hyperbole. He might have the most diverse route tree I've ever reviewed on this channel. This is one game. This is just one game. Now, of course, the obvious part when it comes to Heltovik is that they switched offensive coordinators halfway through the year. The games I've tracked are from the latter half of the year, when the offense was cooking a lot more. I have watched tape from previous ones, but I don't think it gives as much of an accurate skill set vision that we can get from these later games. So that's game 1. Then we have game 2 as well. A lot of inside slot routes, very creative, lots of start-stop. He's allowed to use that fluid movement that he has that we'll get to in a minute. A long variety of routes. He's not running deep every play. He does have a lot of inside fades as well and seam routes, but he's just constantly everywhere. And even in game 3, he kind of moved away from the outside, spent a lot more time in the slot. But he has such an unpredictable route tree. So if as a DB, if you're studying him, you really don't know where he's going to go because he has such a different variety that he can run. When you see it laid on top of each other, and you can have a full picture of every route he ran. This is 3 game sample size. Of course, I watched I think 6 or 7 games, but the 3 games I tracked, this was how it looked, which is quite special. He is absolutely everywhere. He runs hitches at different depths, which is quite common for receivers, but he can also run these outs and ups. He can run a decent fade, and we'll get to that in a minute with just how he sets those up. And he is a very polished route runner and an extremely valuable weapon on his offense, not even just on the route running, but he's also taken some carries in the backfield in the latter half of the season. So he is a very exciting receiver, and I think this is the best route tree that we've seen. I've sent this to a couple of different people and coaches in the ELF, and they've been equally as impressed when it comes to the diversity that he can run within this system. Now, in regard to Milan Spiller's size, I don't want to just show a bunch of clips of him getting hit really hard because that doesn't really achieve anything. But what I do advise you to do is just look at the hits he's taking after these catches. So he's taking a lot of contact when he comes over the middle because he's a slot receiver. He's going to be coming against linebackers and safeties that hit really, really fucking hard. He's a young guy. He's going to fill out his frame. But it's a point of emphasis I think needs to be included when you talk about his game in particular. Now I know what you're thinking, Matt, you've sped through the entirety of the intro, you've done half of this video already and we're only up to like the 3rd part. why are you speeding through this evaluation? And that's because I want to spend an extended time talking about Milan's routes, his release, his footwork, his setups, his everything on his routes is so polished, especially for a rookie, but he might have one of the best short games in all of Europe right now. First off, I've got to mention, as I alluded to earlier, Helvetic switched offenses halfway through the year because of their controversies, whatever, you can talk about that all you want. But he was a lot better in the second half. He was used, obviously, but he wasn't as well known as the first half of the year. He didn't have as many targets, and he started to build up the connection with Carlton Aiken, and has really had just an outstanding season. All of the clips are used from a mix, but predominantly in the latter half, where he's just exploding into the scene with these short combinations, this amazing footwork, and it all starts with this release, right? His release setup is different quite a lot. He has outstanding hand movement as well, even when he's not getting the ball. If he just needs a yard of space, he can create that with the explosive off the line. He can create that with his active hands. And that is something that not a lot of receivers have put together in their third year, let alone in their rookie year. And he's put together the feet and hands off of the line tremendously. Another thing I quite often characterize in my evaluations is movement. Of course, off of the release, you got to have good movement in this second section of the route where it comes to the route running, just the fluidity. And the way that I would describe it is smooth. Everything is just so smooth. His cuts, his hips are very good out of his breaks. He has great stop-start movement, great stop-start speed. He's able to contort himself into these different positions, and his movement is definitely a highlighted factor that I think goes massively under the radar when it comes to his game. That is such an important part of what gets him the space. Of course, his feet and his setups and his release are amazing, but it's his movement that creates this space. There aren't very many DBs that have the same ability to move like he does. Like I said, smooth. You can see it in a ton of these clips just how good he is when it comes to this kind of stuff. I think I can attribute this to AFB and Robinson. Both of these receivers have similar movement styles to Spiller. I think he's been able to adapt that into his game and it's kind of taken parts of both of them, which I think is amazing for him that he is able to do that, which also speaks for his quality as a receiver. From what I've been told within the organization, he's extremely smart and extremely able to pick up parts of everyone's games and add it into him, which I think we'll see more of that during his ELF career. And I'm very excited to see just what he can add into himself next. I think it's going to be very exciting. But like I said, all of these clips, so smooth. Okay, so we know that he has great hip dexterity. We know he has a good release. We know he has good setups. We know he has good hand movement. How are his hands at the catch point? Great. Some drops, of course. Granted, what receiver doesn't have drops? He's still inexperienced with that. He sometimes will bring the ball into his body. It's not a massive thing, but it has come up a few times at the catch point. He is able to high point. He is able to track the ball well in the air. He is able to take the ball down during contact. These are all things that he's able to do. Again, young receiver, able to add all of these in just his first season. Again, start of the year wasn't as good as it. As the season has progressed, he's become one of the better receivers at it in the entire league. It's incredibly impressive how fast he's progressing in these factors. Some parts of it have been the offensive line, like I mentioned about earlier. He's had to have shorter windows to get open. I think he's adjusted to that amazingly. But his hands, definitely a highlight factor of his game. And last but certainly not least, his recent evolution of his game, because there have been so many this season, as he's been also used in jet sweeps and as more of an addition into the run game over the last couple of weeks. I think this is because the offense has been more restricted with injuries and whatnot, so he's been coming in and their run game all season has been rather horrible. So him coming in and actually being quite a serviceable player in this run with its rack ability is incredibly important. We've seen a lot of his rack ability when it comes to this season. When he gets the ball, he's able to open up those big holes. Like I said, he's getting hit quite hard during that, but he's able to pick it up, and he is one of the leading rack yardage players. It's not like he's just taking short 5-6 yard passes and only taking those 5-6 yard passes on his own and then going to ground. He is extremely tough, and he's going to try and get as much as he can. Our last factor is physicality. Naturally, when he is a slot receiver, he isn't the best blocking player, and sometimes they'll take him out altogether with these blocking plays. And naturally, we don't have a ton of tape when it comes to this kind of thing, but the fact he's being taken off shows that he isn't a great blocker. We've seen that he isn't a fantastic blocker. Physically as well, he can sometimes be pushed off of routes. We've seen that a few times. Overall, I think that he is going to be fine with this when he bulks up. Like I said, with the size, he's going to develop, he's going to get bigger, he's going to get stronger. First year in the league problems, this is quite common when it comes to younger receivers or receivers that are coming up from youth level. Especially in Europe too, there aren't a ton of physically dominant blockers in Europe. There's only maybe 2 or 3 that really come to mind when you think of blocking receivers. My 2 are Harlan Kofi and Philip Hahn. Both of those are excellent blockers, but apart from that, it's a short list. I think if you add this to his game now, he would be such a well-rounded weapon for Helvetic. I would like to see him add it into his skill set. I think it'd be a really exciting part of his game, especially with the run of Helvetic. It, like I said, hasn't been great. If he can be a really reliable blocker, it could open up a lot of holes for that team. To conclude, I'm a big fan of Milan Spiller. I really am. I think that he has sky-high potential to really make 1,000 yards. Like it's absolutely within range that he does this his rookie season, which is absolutely incredible. Tune in this weekend, he will be doing it. I will be trying to watch it on stream as well. Plenty of links and descriptions of stuff like player evaluations and whatnot, but the big thing with Milan Spiller is he's just an incredibly polished football player. Like an incredibly polished football player. I was talking to a very well-known coach in Europe yesterday, and he was like, oh, you know, Torre or Spiller, what one do you reckon? And I think that Torre is a phenomenal athlete, but when it comes to Spiller, man, he just understands football so well. And I think a lot can really be said about a player that just understands football to his level of degree. He's obviously a very clever person. And his teammates also that I've spoken to have all spoke glowingly of him. So he's a fantastic player. I'm excited to see what he gets into the future. And that'll do us. So yeah, much appreciated. This one was late. This one was late. Took me a while to do. Just had to do some other side things. Got some stuff coming up in the future that will impact scheduling, but should be fine nevertheless. And yeah, hope you're all good. I think no public service announcements. I'm gonna do a couple of like Brett Coleman-esque videos soon. Like try and get back to doing some of those that I haven't done for a while. I'll be streaming the London Monarchs running back thing at some point this week and just go with the flow. And yeah, that's all I've got to report. Nothing else. Let me know how you're doing. You know, that's all. That's what the channel's about. It's community-based thing. So I'll see you later. Thank you for tuning in once again. Hope you enjoyed. I had fun. Hope you did too. I'll see you next time. Thank you very much. See you later and goodbye.